Welcome to our usual meeting of GEM Talk, a project which was first launched with the Italian Exhibition Group. And as usual, we try to do gemological education, and today we decided to speak about a splendid gem that is amber, and to also speak and say how important it is not only for gemologists but for all stakeholders and operators, meaning salespeople, retail people who have to do with private customers and who need to perfectly know the type of material in order to be able to share information with the customers. And among our speakers, we have monsters, please allow me this word, of gemology. So the first speaker will be Guy Lalous, president of the Belgian Association of Society of Gemology. He was president of FEEG, and he's also ambassador of that federation. And he will speak about amber. And then Mr. Longobardo, a jeweler, but above all, he is a fan of the most beautiful amber which exists, that is the CIBJO amber. And he will tell us about the Sicilian amber. And then Kenneth Scarratt, my mentor, meaning that when I started gemology, well, Kenneth Scarratt for me was the best. So when I got to know him, he was really a genius, and I learned a lot from him, and I continue to learn from him. He is currently president of the A sector of CIBJO, which deals with all gem materials, and he is the director of a very important project, which is the Academy. And then Rui Galopin, who is an educator in gemology, both in historical terms, and he's a very good storyteller. So I thank you all. I thank all the people who are listening to us on streaming. And I give the floor straight away to Guy.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will speak to you today on behalf of the Federation for European Education in Gemology, as well as the Royal Gemological Association of Belgium. So I'm going to talk about amber, and this has not been an easy exercise for me. I went out of my comfort zone and I discovered a fascinating material. I hope you will enjoy the content of my presentation as much as I do. So, there will be 4 distinct chapters in my talk. The first question, what about amber? Gemological properties, of course. Amber by origin and treatments. What about amber? Amber is a biogenic gem material. Biogenic gem materials are the products of living or once living organisms and biological processes. So the first question, how is resin transformed into amber? Research is still going on. We are not quite sure, but we have some clues. So it all started with bacteria. Bacteria influence the early stages of resin degradation and transformation. Amber often forms in sedimentary deposits where resin-containing layers are subjected to pressure and temperature, enabling the aging process. Then we have two major processes, oxidation and polymerization. And in the polymerization, well, Poinard found out the importance of seawater in the process, suggesting it inhibits fluctuations in temperature and oxygen concentration. Additionally, seawater salts may facilitate the polymerization process. And then, of course, for us to find these gems, the resin must be protected from deterioration factors. On top of this, amber may preserve an organism in its original life position. Amber is fascinating, and it has been studied through various scientific disciplines. We have paleobotany, paleoentomology, classic gemology, and of course, analytical spectroscopic techniques used in organic chemistry. No wonder the amber has an organic origin. Another scientific discipline, and interesting as well, is the archaeogemology. Uses the origin of gems to study the migration patterns and trade routes of ancient cultures and civilization. The Amber Road, for example, supplied ancient Greece, the Roman Empire, and China, amongst others. Amber can be classified according to 4 criteria. We have the age, paleobotanical origin, the chemical composition, which is linked to the paleobotanical origin, and of course the place of origin. It's a fossil resin. How do we determine the age of fossil resins? 2 ways to do this. We have radiometric dating. Makes it possible to determine the age of a fossil by measuring the amount of specific radioactive isotopes present in it and calculating how much time has passed since those isotopes started to decay. Then we have the relative dating. We will use the position of index fossils in sediment layers to determine their approximate age. So amber derives from fossilized resins produced by prehistoric trees. The most important resin-producing plant families are classified as gymnosperms and angiosperms. Important for us, conifers are the dominant phylum of gymnosperms. Here we have a classification, a table in chronological order from youngest to top. We start with copal, which is 2 million years old, approximately. Then we go to the more recent forms of amber that can be found in Mexico and the Dominican Republic. Those are approximately 220 million years old. What do we see there? The resin source. Well, for the copal, we have Hymenaea cuberil. This one is still existing. For the fossil resins that are approximately 20 million years old, we have the Hymenaea mexicana and Hymenaea protera. Those are both extinct. What do we see? The habitat. Well, the habitats of all of these tropical, all of those are tropical, subtropical, humid, warm. A little bit older are the Baltics, ambers, about 45 million years old. They're again humid, warm, temperate. Pseudolarix. Pseudolarix is a tree producing resin, still existing today. So that tree exists today in China and produces resin with succinic acid. And so this will be important to find out where the resin comes from. We will come to this in a few moments. we go up, we go to older ambers, and one of the ambers that we know well is the Burmese amber. It's about 100 million years old, has a lot of fossils. Then we have the Lebanese amber. The Lebanese amber has well-preserved fossils. So this about DH. Chemical composition. Amber is not a crystalline material, but a complex group of organic molecules. There is no defined chemical formula for fossil resins. Amber has a macromolecular polymeric network in which a molecular phase has been trapped. The molecular phase consists out of more than 100 organic and a few inorganic compounds. When succinic acid is present, the amber is classified as succinate. When this acid is lacking, it's considered as a resinite. So here we have the main ambers that are sold in the trade. We have the Baltic amber, the succinite. The succinite can be found in the Baltics, it can be found in Poland, and it can be found in Ukraine. We have the amber from Myanmar, approximately 100 million years old, the Dominican Republic and Mexico, about 20 million years old, Sicily, 20 million years old as well. We have ambers with paleobotanical origin, conifers, and others, angiosperms. One succinite, the succinite, is in the Baltics, in Poland, and Ukraine. Gemological properties. Specific gravity, very low, 0.96 until 1.09. Crystal system, amorphous. Diaphanity, transparent to opaque. Hardness, low. Luster, resinous. Fracture, conchoidal. And amber is single refractive and shows anomalous extinction. Refractive index 1.54. So this is amber between cross polars. Color phenomena in blue amber from Indonesia and the Dominican Republic. So we have the so-called blue amber. So the blue amber owes its color to fluorescence. The greenish fluorescence is essentially confined to the surface. This material displays also the Usumbara effect, whereby its body color changes from yellow to red with increasing thickness. Usumbara effect. Analytical spectroscopic techniques, very useful for fossil resins. So from a gemological point of view, each analysis must be non-invasive, non-destructive, fast, easy, and cheap. Two possible techniques, Raman spectroscopy and mid-infrared. So the Raman spectroscopy tends to be expensive. The strong fluorescence of the material is also a negative factor in this type of examination. So the mid-infrared is the most used and popular method to identify resins. So infrared spectrometry is an absorption spectroscopy that measures molecular vibrations, which makes it possible to determine the composition of a sample with high precision. It's an essential tool for exploring the composition and structure of resins. Mid-infrared spectra reflect the structure of amber, but also its changing during treatments, processing, and serves as a versatile tool for identifying succinite, treated material, other fossil resins, and imitations. So here we are able to make the distinction to differentiate amber from copal, as copal has an ester level absorption as at 1,733 wave numbers. Amber has an ester peak as well, but that peak is situated at 1,748 wave numbers. And on the right-hand side, you also see the Baltic shoulder, which differentiates the succinite from the other resins as well. Here we see copal, Dominican amber, and Baltic amber, and the specialists will be able to differentiate those without any problem. So I made a small table with different infrared spectra of all of these materials. This is for the specialists, but it's possible for a specialist to find out where the amber comes from using this technique. So amber by origin. We will speak first about susanite. We go to Myanmar, Dominican Republic, and Mexico. So basically, susanite is found along the coast of an Eocene sea, the Eocene Sea, an ancient sea. And we have three distinct delta. A delta up north, the Gdansk Delta, and two other deltas, one in Poland, the Partial Delta, and the Klesov Delta, which is situated in Ukraine. We will go to every single one of these mines. So this was the sea with the Gdansk Delta up north, the Partial Delta in Poland, and the Klesov Delta in Ukraine. The resin-producing plant, the pseudolarix, and then, of course, a lot of stories about the Baltic amber. What we are sure of is that Baltic amber is a fossil resin from coniferous trees. It's about 44 million years old. The Baltic forests had pine trees and leafed trees as well. We do know that it was a subtropical forest, and most of the inclusions within the amber have been studied in the 19th century and haven't been restudied since. So today in the Gdansk area, amber is discovered on beaches after storms. And two main extraction methods. In the Gdansk area, the hydraulic method uses high-pressure water jets. Materials are pumped to the surface and are rinsed in a saline solution. And then we have the cavity method involving digging and manual extraction. So both methods have been practiced for centuries in the Baltic region and have caused substantial environmental damage over the years. The reserves in the Gdansk Delta are enormous. They have been estimated at 644,000 tons. But these deposits lie at depths that make open pit mining impractical. We go to Lithuania, the Curonian Lagoon. So this Curonian Lagoon was important in the 19th century as amber production yielded 2,250 tons. About 30 years ago, a survey came up with the remaining potential of about 350 tons, which is not much. We go to the Kaliningrad Oblast. So geological structure, interesting. The amber is mined from sedimentary deposits in layers of blue earth. These layers have been subject to pressure and temperature, which enable the aging. The blue earth is a clay to sandy silt with a high glauconite content. Glauconite is an iron-rich potassium silicate from the mica family and an indicator of marine conditions. So we saw in one of the first slides that salt might play a role in the polymerization process. We see here marine conditions for this mine. So the glauconite gives the sediment a bluish-greenish appearance when moist, and these layers are approximately 14 meters thick. Blue earth. Each cube of blue earth contains on average 1.9 kilos of amber. Amber is mined in open pit mines at depths of 50 up to 60 meters. Washing 1 cube of clay requires 8 cubes of water, and positive temperatures are required for the process because water is essential. So daily production, 3 up to 5 tons a day. The mine, operational since '76, produces 5 up to 600 tons annually, and the reserves are estimated at 53,000 tons compared to the 644,000 in Poland. There's quite a difference, I would say. And 6 up to 8% of the amber pieces contain fossils. Baltic amber is highly evaluated, particularly in China and the Arab countries. We will see some pictures of a fair with a lot of people from these countries visiting the fair. So we are at the mine in Jantarny. Washing the glauconite. We can see that we can see some rust into the material. This is because of, well, temperature, because of the water, because of the salt. And so all of this material requires a lot of maintenance, of course. And then people will work the material, and amber jewelry comes in with traditional and modern designs. The amber is part of the cultural identity of the Baltics and is of a very big economic importance over there. We go to the Parshu Delta. We are still in Poland, but in the southern part of Poland. And this is also Susanite. Stellarium mine. So operates the first open pit mine in the amber pit mine in the European Union. So the company obtained its license in 2018 and began operating in 2020. The deposit has a stratified structure with an upper layer consisting of quartz sand, which is about 15 meters thick, and a lower layer, 7 meters, glauconite sediments. The amber is of a high quality, and the reserves have been estimated at 22,000 tons. Lovely material. From there, we go to Ukraine. Susanite again. So, the Pripyat Basin amber deposits are associated with the Pripyat River, which flows through Ukraine and Belarus before joining the Dnieper River. The primary amber deposits are found in the Rovno region. The amber is about 35 up to 40 million years old, which is slightly younger than the Baltic. It is extracted both legally and illegally, and the legal amber production reached approximately 39 tons in 2023. Precise figures about the reserve are not available, but there seems to be a lot. So the Rovno amber versus Baltic amber, differences. So significant differences exist between the Baltic and Rovno arthropod assemblages, indicating a distinct ecological and geographical origin. Chemical composition, well, few differences exist between Baltic and Rovno amber in terms of color, textures, and chemical components. Then we have the stable isotope analysis. Hydrogen isotopes indicate a small difference, but this suggests that the Rovno amber formed in a southerly region in a different climate. So I was speaking to Eva from the Gdansk University. I often speak to Eva from Gdansk University, and I asked her, well, we are speaking about Rovno amber, we are speaking about Baltic amber. They are both Sussanites, they have both the Baltic shoulder. Is it possible to differentiate both? We started to discuss, and she started to speak, and at a certain time she slowed down the conversation stopped, and she told me that it's sometimes possible to differentiate both, but not always. So I'm quite convinced that she is able to differentiate both through mid-infrared spectra, but she wouldn't tell me about the details. Lovely material comes in from Ukraine, but we have some ecological problems with the illegal mining. This is basically, in my opinion, a catastrophe. Material that comes out, and they start organizing themselves. They have shops. They go to fairs. They have beautiful material. So Baltic amber has 7 main colors and about 250 shades. So transparent amber, only 10% of the amber is transparent. Red amber, when the amber stayed in air for a long time, enabling an extensive oxidation process, it can turn red. Blue amber, the shade, is due to intrusions of pyrite in small cracks. Yellow amber, the most common color. Thousands of small gas bubbles diffract the light, forming the yellow color. White amber is quite rare. The smaller the bubbles are, the wider it is. Greenish amber color due to a mix of pressure and temperature. Black amber, amber mixed with fossil debris. Identification of susanite. So main method, of course, is infrared. Then we have paleobotany, the study of fossil plants. An interesting one is the oak hair in Baltic amber. I will speak about this in a minute. And then we have, of course, the paleoentomology, the study of fossil insects, but this is not my branch. So infrared, in the infrared spectroscopy, we will find the Baltic shoulder, related to susanite, in the 1260, 1160 wave number range. Those are assigned to carbon-oxygen stretching vibration. This is an interesting one, the oak hairs. The oak hairs are the most common and frequently found plant inclusion in Baltic amber. They are derived from branched epidermal trichomes of oak leaves and flower buds, and characteristic of Baltic amber. I have seen parcels of amber from Ukraine. It is susanite. I have seen many parcels. I studied those with my loupe. I wasn't able to find any oak hairs in those. I found many oak hairs in the parcels from the Baltics, but I didn't find any in the parcels from Ukraine, indicating a distinct ecological system. So these are these oak hairs and some more. And you can see those with the loupe and some others for the beauty of the picture, of course. We go to Mexico. Mexican amber. What can I tell about Mexican amber? Well, the age is about 20 million years old. The age was determined based on strontium isotope ratios as well as biostratigraphic data of other fossils. Inclusion-wise, we will find some remnants of the plant-producing tree, the Hymenea mexicana, as well as plant hopper species, the Nogodina chiapaneca, and female mosquitoes, winged termites, aquatic environment. This all gives us an idea about the tropical and subtropical climate the amber formed in. So these are some pictures of the inclusions with the winged termite as well. Dominican Republic, again, 20 million years old approximately. The age has been determined through biostratigraphic data. Here an inclusion of the of the resin-producing tree Hymenea protera. Burma, 100 million years old approximately. So this one has been, the age has been estimated based on palynological studies, the studies of fossil pollen and spores. These are markets in Burma. In China, some lovely inclusions. The Burmese amber has a lot of inclusions. And this is for the gemologist treatments. Lovely. During a visit in 2016 at Amberiffing Dansk, I became aware of the fact that none of the material that was sold over there was checked, at least not in 2016 when I visited the fair. So a lot of people visit these fairs. Asian people, people from the Arabic countries as well. Here we see a gentleman with a white hat. We see another gentleman with the same white hat. It's another gentleman, but they are doing basically the same, looking for amber, checking nothing, at least not at the time when I visited. And we see that all of this material is sold by the kilos. And is this treated? I think so. I'm not sure. We should check. But the necklace, black and yellow at the right, I don't know. The one in the middle, I think it is treated. The necklace on the right with the pendant, I'm sure it's treated. So, amber and its treatment. Susanite is the main type of amber that undergoes treatment. Other ambers, such as those from Myanmar, Mexico, and the Dominican Republic, are seldom treated because they are rarer, more expensive, or have a lower melting point. So the younger ones are less polymerized and have a lower melting point. So amber and its treatments, classification of Baltic amber according to the International Amber Association. Natural Baltic amber, so this stone has been cut and polished only. Treated Baltic amber, amber that has been treated through thermal treatments, dyeing, pressure treatments, or filling cavities or cracks. Pressed Baltic amber, pressed together at temperature and pressure without additional components. The bonded Baltic amber is natural, treated or pressed amber bonded together with the slightest possible binding agent necessary to join the pieces. So we will have a brief look at treated susanite, pressed susanite, bonded susanite, and susanite covered with the synthetic resin. So the main purposes of amber treatment are to improve or alter the color, enhance the clarity, and produce inclusions that have an appealing visual effect. So during a visit in Lithuania, I explored a store in Vilnius. That company operated shops in Vilnius, Riga, and Klaipėda. They had in the Klaipėda factory 150 workers and processed about 1.5 tons of amber each month. So the main treatment was treating the material at 150 up to 200 degrees with a pressure of 30 atmospheres of nitrogen gas to eliminate gas bubbles and fractures. They treated the material for 3 hours at 140 degrees to obtain the yellow color, heated the material up to 200 degrees for 8 hours to give it a black coating, and heated it for several weeks at 100 degrees to give it a vintage appearance. We have the sun spangles. What are sun spangles? Well, sun spangles are produced by expansion and decrepitation after the pressure equilibrium of the bubbles within the amber has been broken abruptly. So the presence of those is proof of treatment. This is how it looks like. Heat-enhanced susanite contains brownish flow lines. These flow lines result from the oxidation of pre-existing cracks that are healed during enhancement at low temperature and pressure. The heating process would also change the refractive index. The higher the temperature used, the higher the refractive index will be, with a maximum of 1.6. The flow lines, the brownish flow lines that do not interconnect. Cracks look different in treated susanite and untreated material. So narrow red oxidation is often visible along fissures in treated. This is different from the appearance of cracks that have undergone slow natural oxidation. They have dark center lines and show progressively light coloration outward from the cracks. Treated susanite. Well, the treatment affects the structure of the polymer matrix and the chemical composition of the material. From a chemical point of view, following processes occur and can be observed through mid-infrared spectroscopy. We have saturation of multiple bonds, the loss of volatile compounds, and oxidation processes. So the specialists will easily find out the differences. Pressed amber consists of small amber fragments or scraps that have been reformed into larger pieces under heat and pressure. Bonded amber contains foreign substances. At left, pressed amber. At right, bonded amber. Succinite covered with a synthetic resin, red amber. So in this case, the infrared spectrum will display bands corresponding to the synthetic material. Conclusions. Well, amber is not a crystalline material, but a complex group of organic molecules. As such, some of the testing methods are beyond the scope of classic gemology and imply organic chemistry to understand the complex variations due to natural or artificial aging. Mid-infrared spectroscopy and careful microscopic observations are the most effective scientific methods for identifying fossil resins. It is possible through infrared spectroscopy to differentiate amber from copal, determine the origin of amber, and to find out about treatments. A laboratory providing certification of amber would need to have the equipment and a specialist on the subject, have a good spectral database for both natural and treated ambers with samples of confirmed, proven provenance. A standardization of sample preparation is needed to give reproducible results. And the gemologist needs to keep in mind that spectral patterns will depend on the modification conditions. If the process is carried out under mild conditions, the infrared remains almost unchanged. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you very much. Now I call on the stage Ugo Longobardo. Come parlo appunto in italiano perché la presentazione anche sarà in italiano.
I'll switch to English. Mr. Longobardo will speak in Italian. As you have seen, most ambers are produced in tons within the mines. Well, in Italy, we have got some amber, but the production is not all that big. So I would like to invite Mr. Longobardo to talk about it. Some samples. Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I have brought some samples, something to give you an idea of what CIMETITE amber is. In 1980, Professor Cavanago published a gemological treatise that maybe some of you know. I believe this was the first gemological book mentioning CIMETITE amber as the most beautiful amber in the world because of its physical and chemical characteristics. Unfortunately, and that is Sicily, our island, and that's the area where we presume that amber originates. The amber is then brought to the sea by the rivers. Here you can see some raw specimens. In 1 year, about 300 grams of raw material is treated. I mean, think about this and all what you've seen so far. We are talking about minimal quantities here. Catania, because of the Simeto River, and hence the name SIMETITE for this kind of amber. So Catania was a place where you could find this amber most frequently because that was the biggest river in Sicily. And this amber, after 25 million years, moves from the mountain areas I showed you before to the sea via the rivers.
Più grosso che io ho avuto tra le mani.
No big pieces are ever found. The biggest amber I saw was about as big as an orange. All these samples that you can see range from 0.5 grams to 45, 50 grams. And this is a group of gems representing the production of a couple of years ago. That was quite an abundant year. So we do not have research systems or mining systems like the one we've seen so far. Everything is much more artisanal. The amber reaches the sea brings it back during storms, and after storms, retired people who have nothing better to do in their life just walk on the beach looking for amber, trying to see what the sea has left behind. And this happens only in a limited geographic area.
Identificato prima con la striscia rossa sono tutte quante.
The area I showed you on the map before are all sandy areas, whereas the rocky areas with cliffs are areas where no amber can be found. So most of this amber is actually dispersed and lost.
L'amber, il primo ve l'ho detto già che sono questi signori.
So we have these elderly people wearing rubber boots after a storm and going to the beach looking for what the sea has brought. And then we have those people that look for mussels. And while they look for mussels, they actually find amber. This is an amazing wealth for us. The city of Catania has actually based its jewelry on amber. Cities like Messina or Syracuse hardly have any trade of amber because all what is collected remains in Catania, where some workshops, including mine, produce jewels. This amber is full of inclusions. There is an insect there, as you can see. All the rest is vegetal inclusion. It is about 25 grams in weight. This gem weighs 3 grams. It is very, very small. It has been processed in 1960. And this is a very rare piece of amber in a bracelet of the 18th century in yellow gold. Amber has been found also in the tombs, both Greek and Roman tombs. The myth has it that amber was used by fishermen on the beaches when they were roasting the fish to give it a special flavor. And as a matter of fact, I've been processing amber ever since I was 16, and you immediately recognize our amber because it smells differently from any other type of amber. These are modern jewelry items made with top quality amber. Our amber doesn't break, it is very elastic. It is impact resistant, whereas the Dominican amber, for instance, fractures very easily. And this is a necklace. I told you that the quantity of amber we obtain each year is very, very low. And if you have a 20-gram raw piece, you have to take into account that about 70% of this will be lost in processing, because you need to give to the piece of amber a shape which is commercially interesting. Therefore, a lot of it is lost. This necklace with amber diamonds and sapphires is extremely rare because you have oval pieces of amber. Usually, necklaces are made with pieces of completely different shapes. A bracelet. Have a look at this. These are the items that we make. They are all made at artisanal level because you can't use big machines to process amber. You use a grinding machine first, but then everything is done by hand with files and abrasives all the way up to the final polishing. In the top right picture, you can see earrings with gold, pearls, and diamonds. More earrings with diamonds. In the bottom, you can see earrings where the amber is supported by a golden network that, given to the transparency of the amber, produces this very special effect. This amber has a blue part, a special fluorescence. SIMETITE's amber can be found in every possible color, from in colorless white, transparent, to red. Some strawberry ambers can be found, and they're absolutely fantastic. And it is a pleasure to process it, because you start processing it, it's like as if you removed the skin, the peel, and you start looking inside the amber and start thinking what you can obtain out of that gem. And then, of course, after listening to the scientific explanations, I'm giving you a completely different perspective, referring to the pleasure to process and then wear amber. A few quotations that I've put together in time. It's like in glass, in amber, a crystal shining ray that from coming to being all is no interval. Dante. These are unique items. You can't find two the like because you can't find two pieces of amber the like. And here, for instance, you can see that different shapes of amber have been used to make this wonderful bracelet. Tying children's necks as a remedy against all sorts of evil and enchantments. Plinius. Once again, a necklace where we have amber of different shapes and different colors. 90% of jewelers in Catania has an item with amber in their windows. Today, fewer and fewer jewelers have got the amber. But you know, we have to buy the raw amber from the fishermen, otherwise they'll stop looking for amber. We would actually lose this possibility and this pleasure. And this is one of the very few Italian precious gems. Not even luxury justifies a reason why human beings love amber, plain as a game. And this is a piece of amber. The raw amber was particularly suitable for this kind of shape, the shape of Sicily. Thank you.
Grazie Ugo.
Thank you, Ugo. Thank you very much, because you showed us beautiful jewelry expressing the Made in Italy approach. Did you see how beautifully detailed all these jewels were? And the fact that this amber is so rare, 300 grams a year. We're not talking about tons, as we heard before. Well, this allows artists to create unique jewels. As you were able to see also in a pair of earrings, the two ambers are totally different one from the other. Thank you, Ugo. Ken Scarratt.
Inviting you on the stage. Yes. Yeah. E appunto cambiamo il discorso, abbiamo proprio per parlare, per dire di come è importante la formazione continua nel settore. Quindi Ken è il preside di un progetto della CIBJO, che è l'Academy, e vi parlerà di quanto è importante appunto la formazione per il nostro settore. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting us. Wonderful opportunity for us all. Two really fantastic talks there. I learned a lot. Thank you both very much. I don't speak Italian, but Google Translate did a fantastic job for me. So thank you very, very, very much indeed. One of the things that came out of Guy's talk was talking about treatments and so on. And some of the things he said there was, well, I think this was treated. I'm not sure about that. And in the window, these are very important things. And which leads me into what Rui and I are going to give some education-based talk. And they're going to be short and sweet, to the point. Transparency is not an option. It is a necessity. How can a focused education strengthen customer confidence? These are really important points. When we're talking about the amber in the window, and you don't know whether it's treated or not, and there's no label to tell you that, it's a problem. Would you agree? Yes. So transparency is extremely important. As industry professionals, we are defined by how we relate to our clients. As professionals, we are expected to be a beacon of knowledge covering every aspect of the products we offer. Tough one. I mean, you can be a great gemologist, not a very good salesperson, or not a very good manager, but it is expected. The way we proactively and unhesitatingly inform our clients defines our professionalism. It inspires customer confidence and develops long-term customer loyalty. These are very important. Some of the things we often say in CIBJO meetings is words are important. And these are very important words that everyone needs to understand as we go out into the show, we're in our daily occupations. Transparency and being totally professional is how we develop long-term customer loyalty. As we say something wrong, eventually, believe it or not, it will come back to you when the client finds out. I have many stories about that. I can relate them later on. There are many stories of when it comes back and hits you in the face. So the CIBJO formed the academy. In the academy, we look at industry best practices and procedures. And for people that really go through this program, we're looking at a simple title of Jewelry Industry Professional. Best practices and procedures, the modules that are currently in the teaching modules go from precious metals, gemstones, diamonds, pearls, responsible sourcing, coral, and gemological. But there is more to come. Now, they're all based, all those modules are based on the CIBJO Blue Books. All those CIBJO Blue Books are free to download. They're not just rules and regulations. In themselves, they're educational. As you go through them, you learn a lot about what is right, what is wrong, what we should do and what we shouldn't do. It's all in those Blue Books. So I encourage you to go to CIBJO website, go to the Blue Book section, download them all. And the only cost you have is the cost of your internet. Okay? This the first one was actually produced in 1968, and that's a picture of it there on the right-hand side. You can see the color is blue. The books are not blue anymore, but we keep calling them the Blue Books. Simply as a historic fact. I'm not. Oh, here we go. But now, when you look at the Blue Books today, they're all ISO formatted. So all the rules and regulations are clearly laid out in an ISO-style format for anyone to follow and learn from. And when we were talking earlier on about your treatments, all the treatments, according to the rules and regulation, every single treatment needs to be declared, be fully transparent. But now, if you're talking to him, he's talking to you, and you're all in the trade, we have codes. Those codes go on the tickets. They don't use the codes with clients, customers, retail, but between traders, or in order to make sure your staff know about the treatment, there are codes that go on the tickets. And they're all listed in the Blue Books. When a client comes, I have to tell most of you, when a client comes in, they have great expectations. And there's an excitement at the moment. You can feel it. I mean, in my very younger days, I spent a couple of years in a retail store. It was an eye-opener. The magic of a customer coming through the door with the excitement on the face. They've seen something they like. Wonderful, I want this, I want this. You get carried away with it. There's an excitement. There's great expectations. Now down to earth. The CIBJO produces the do's and don'ts. Okay? And I'm going to go through them very, very quickly. And not all of them, by the way. I've just highlighted a few here. There's something called the do's and don'ts. Now, you can also download this from the CIBJO website. And it's in 13 different languages. Oh, 17. Okay, I'm not keeping up with it. It's in 17 different languages. So it's very, very useful as a do and don't for you to have on your desk. So do ensure that your supplier has given you the appropriate information as to the nature of any items. Do ensure that items are labeled correctly within your stock. Do ensure that all sales staffs are properly informed. Do sell all products accurately and without ambiguity. Do always clearly disclose any treatments prior to and at the time of sale. Remember, treatments not only impact the value of goods. They can also require special care. So it is very important that this is done. Do always ensure an invoice receipt to any purchaser stating that the product is sold accurately and without ambiguity. This is what I really want. Do educate your salespersons. You know, it's great to see you all here talking about amber. You're going to go away knowing a whole lot more about amber than you did before, right? So it's great that you go and you start talking to your clients and you have that knowledge. But everyone should be well educated. Do ensure that the consumer advertising or marketing in print or online is in accordance with the CIBJO rules. Believe me, I'm looking at social media all the time for one point of view. I'm looking for mistakes. And I can tell you every single time I go online looking at social media, I find many mistakes. So most of it's because it's not the jeweler that's doing the advertising, it's an advertising company. So you have to check your advertising company to make sure they don't make mistakes. Do research critical issues that concern consumers, for example, sustainability, ethical sourcing, and create proactive information. Do inform the customer about aftercare and maintenance. Now the don'ts. Do not use language, verbal or written, that does not accurately and unambiguously reflect the true and or nature of the product. Do not use the adjectives real, genuine, precious, authentic, and natural when referring to artificial products. You wouldn't believe how much I see that on social media. Everything is natural on social media. And I very often make the comments, which are sometimes well received and other times not so well received. But I make the comment anyway, and I encourage you to do so also. Do not wait until after a sale is closed to disclose relevant information. In other words, don't sell it, then say, oh, by the way, I forgot. No, that's too late then. Do not mix up total weights with individual weights. That's a big issue. Do not accept merchandise from the trade without written document that accurately describes. This, a lot of people overlook. You go out, you buy things in the show, you buy things anywhere, and you say, oh, it's beautiful. The guy tells you it's a wonderful natural sapphire or natural ruby or a nice piece of amber. And they just write on the price. And you sign off and you pay for it. You need more information than that. Do not deny or dodge any complex inquiries from consumers concerning the trade, and for example, ethical sourcing and child labor. Don't dodge it. Answer it. Be clear. Do not call reports certificates. They are simply third-party verification reports or professional opinions produced by gemological laboratories. And finally, do not avoid alerting the customer on durability and or stability issues, particularly when treated. Now we come back to the amber situation there. There are special care requirements here with almost all amber products. But it's not as amber. I mean, pearls, etc. They need special care, and the client needs to understand that so that they don't come back and blame you later on. So then you take the credit card or the cash and enjoy the sale. The client is happy, you're happy, and you move on. I think I'm now going to move on to my good friend Rui. Yes? We just straight on to Rui? Can we do that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much, sir. Yes, the green forward. Yes, thank you very much. This is education. Thank you. I was also wondering, are the ambers like presents for us? Thank you very much for po' dopo. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Loredana, for the invitation. Thank you, Gaetano Cavalieri, also for making this trip so enjoyable. And actually, education, it's pretty much a need, as you can see on your screen right now, because if you look, that is not English. Importance education. That is, if I was educated in English, I would probably write it properly, the importance of education. So this is just to begin with a clear mistake that if you are not educated in your trade, in your business, you might get embarrassed if somebody that is more educated will notice that maybe you are not the right person I should be dealing with because you don't say things in the proper way. So this is just an example on how education is critical, particularly when we are all in an industry that is based on trust. It is actually based on trust. And if we actually don't feel that we can trust our supplier or our business associate because he's not educated enough on the trade, on the products, on the processes, then things might not be as swift and as positive as they should be. So this, I think the formatting is going to be a bit dodgy today. Well, we deal in jewelry, right? Jewelry is metals and precious stones, and sometimes artificial products. It doesn't matter over here. But the interesting thing about gems and not about jewelry is when we look at it, we can look at it from many, many perspectives. From a business perspective, for people even out there as an investment, so you have a treasure that you can put on your pocket and you can change borders and have some cash, some liquidity. Also, we can look into jewelry and gems as a form of art. Also, if we want to get the excitement of the history and art together, we look into antique jewelry, and that antique jewelry will give us the excitement and the mystery of all the kings and queens and emperors that used to wear jewelry many, many years ago. And also we have the historical facts regarding the use of jewelry, the use of gemstones that take us back hundreds of thousands of years ago into the traditions, and sometimes the verbal traditions, sometimes the mysterious and beliefs and law around the materials. And that kind of mystery, that kind of situation is critical to understand the mystery of gemstones. On the other hand, you can also look into the materials as objects, as materials under the eyes of a natural history professional, as a geologist, as a biologist, as a mineralogist. So there is also the excitement of the stories of how those gemstones came about as products. We heard Guy Lalous' wonderful presentation on amber, understanding that it is from the biological activity of some plants that we actually get the amber. And that's one of the excitements of the product, has to do on how did it form, and that is also interesting. Everything can be complexed down if you go deep into the science of gemstones. And Guy was, again, very good in stating the peaks of the infrared spectroscope. So if you want to learn even more and more, you need a very solid scientific base. But when we are not in the gemological laboratory, but when we are more as a salesperson, and let me tell you, how many of you are salespeople here? Only 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, more. Salespeople, you are the most important professionals in our industry. You are the ones collecting money to everyone else. You are the ones that make it worth all the work from mine through manufacture, to lapidary, to treatments, to whatever gems and the raw materials, the metals, go through. You are the ones collecting the money from the consumer. You are the most important persons in our industry. So thank you very much for your service, because you deserve that. And you also deserve to be trained that your boss, how do you say in English? Your companies, your organizations invest on your education so you can learn about product knowledge, so you can learn what Ken Scarratt just said, how to do the right thing behind the counter, to be ethical, to be correct, to be transparent, to be credible, to attract consumer confidence. And so education of the salespersons, in my personal opinion, and I think many of you in the room share this, is mainly on the salesperson people level, not much at the CEO level or the management levels. You guys in the sales counter, you are really the face of our industry, and education is and must be for you. And what CIBJO has been doing with the Academy is, for the first time, a very important step into providing you with the necessary tools to do the right thing. When we talk about education, there is also the gemological education that the Italian Gemological Institute provides. So you can understand in more depth the products, the gemstones, but that is not the kind of education I'm talking about today. I'm talking about general knowledge on all the aspects of the industry. Ken introduced the best practices. Guy Lalous introduced the gemological part, but here is the historical part, the natural history part. Even if it is a little bit of a science part, there is this holistic perspective around the materials, around the products you sell, that if salespeople are knowledgeable enough about them, then you can use that information for this. In the luxury industry, people don't buy products. They buy emotions. They buy ideas. They buy immaterial things through a material. And storytelling, the excitement, is critical. Of course, you can sell the snake oil and say, oh, this is amazing, and this is not treated. This is, as Ken said, this is a natural thing. And I just came across one post a couple of days ago of Ken. Somebody was showing clearly freshwater cultured pearls, saying natural. And he said, those are not natural. So this is not only telling the story to charm your future girlfriend or boyfriend. This is telling a story based on facts, but based on excitement. And you can only tell the story first if you know how to tell a story. So that's being a salesperson. But if you have enough information on the product, on the history, on the natural history, and then if you have the best practices in your mindset, you can do it in the proper way. So you can close the sale, you can make your customer happy, and you can make your organization happy because they are making money, and you can even build up the consumer trust on your company, but also on our industry. And luxury has to do with trust, and we have fierce competition from many other luxury industries. They want our customers, they want our money. I mean, your money. I'm just a boring academic. And if we are not doing things properly, we might lose that market share. So that is why education is so critical. Well, museums, they play a part. Art history museums, they have jewelry, they have paintings with jewelry. Natural history museums, they have minerals, they have gemstones, cut gemstones. Those museums, they actually contribute to the excitement of jewelry, of the wow moment of when you look at something really beautiful. And from the formatting of this slide, I'm sure that the other slides, the formatting will be, and the explanation is, this was made on a Mac, and I think that's a PC, right? So this is, yeah. Anyway, but I think we can get away with it. So there is a balance between nature and science and arts and craftsmanship. So we can actually, with that storytelling, mix whatever nature provides us and whatever man adds in terms of value added to what nature provides to us. And depending on the type of customer and type of identity you have on your brand, you can use this to build excitement and to close sales. So this is pretty much about how you communicate and how you educate your staff and how you educate yourself as a professional. Well, just to give you a few examples, because this is a very short talk. In science, whatever science it is, scientists, they communicate with each other using their own language, their own common language. Remember many years ago when the priests, and even today, they speak with each other in Latin? Latin was actually the language for scientific communication. That was many years ago. And even today, I think in the Vatican, they speak in Latin with each other because it was a common language, a common lexicon that was unambiguous. But science, they deal with materials, with rocks, with minerals, with biogenic materials, as Guy Lalous stated what they are. So they have their own way of communicating those materials. Well, we in the industry, we don't sell materials. We'll sell products, and products have names, and those names that they must be well understood by everyone out there, by the consumer. Some of those names, they are actually the same names as we can have in the science. For example, diamond for a scientist is a diamond for a consumer. It's the same name, but sometimes we have different names. It's okay, but there is this acknowledgement that there are universes of terminology that must be recognized as different universes. Consumers, they need product names. But, and this is critical, there is not a huge freedom of every product name that you can use. There are standards. And that's why CIBJO produces the blue books where you have the acceptable commercial names, trade names for every, and I mean every, gem material out there. If you download the gemstone book, you will see an annex by the end of the document with lists, loads and loads of names. If you download the gemological book, you will understand even the difference between a mineral name, a variety name, and a commercial name. But there is a lot to understand. That's why an organization like CIBJO is needed to clearly and ambiguously protect the consumer and the trade from things like this. That's a tsavorite, but for a mineralogist, this is a glossular garnet, because glossular, that's the name of the mineral species. More examples, even in the coral world. If you are a scientist, you will say Corallium japonicum, but if we are on the trade, we can say Aka coral. That's a commercial name. Even now, this is the very hot topic today, we have been calling this jadeite jade. And now apparently there is some issues with using the name jadeite jade for this definition, that rock that is actually a granular, sometimes fibrous agglomerate of some very special minerals of the pyroxene supergroup. This would be the boring definition. But we don't call it a pyroxenite or a pyroxene jade or pyroxene aggregate. We just use commercial names, but we must know exactly what they mean. And that's why education is so important. That's why trade standards are critical. So there's a few more examples. Do you know what a synthetic stone is? Well, maybe now you learn laboratory or lab grown, but that's a very new way of saying synthetic stones. Me as a student, I learned when I was doing gemology, there are natural stones, and then you have artificial products and a very special type of artificial product that is a synthetic stone. This is the definition of a synthetic stone. It is artificial, it is man-made, and it has basically the same composition, the same structure, and therefore the same kind of basic properties of the natural counterpart. That is the definition of it. And if we move on, those are Art Deco jewelry pieces made of a white precious metal, diamonds. What about the blue stone? Those are synthetic sapphires. So they have been classified as synthetic sapphires even in the second-hand jewelry market for decades. But everything changed. And also synthetic sapphire, you have it on your watches, so it's a very normal material. Well, everything changed when synthetic diamonds became products for the jewelry industry. They have actually essentially the same properties, the same composition, but that's a fact. That is the definition of being a synthetic. They have been around since the 1950s, with gem quality since the 1970s, but they were not products because they were too expensive to be commercially viable. So among scientists and among the gemological world, you will see all the articles about this kind of artificial product mentioning synthetic diamonds. Things change in the new millennium when those synthetic diamonds become more commercially interesting from a commercial point of view, and somebody in the industry started to believe, well, the name synthetic might not be very sexy to close a sale, so let's be creative, let's find a way to name it on a different way, which was okay. And the name laboratory grown, laboratory created was introduced into the trade, and eventually, later on, the Federal Trade Commission of the United States, they accepted the term. And so today, even CIBJO recognizes a synthetic stone can be, if the translation is not into other languages, is not a complex thing, you can use laboratory grown, laboratory created. No abbreviations, not lab grown, not lab created, to be completely clear. This is actually the terminology that we use. If we think back, the overuse of the name laboratory grown or lab grown or just LGD without no further clearness on the product has been affecting our industry, has been affecting the diamond industry. And if you go into the CIBJO website, there is the speech of President Gaetano Cavalieri on the impact of the overuse of lab-grown, the narratives behind the use of lab-grown that are affecting. So this is why names and words can be so important. Those have negatively impacted the trade. Well, this is just to be clear. Despite the fact that if you look at one another, you might not be able to tell them apart with your eye, it is always possible to tell them apart in a gemological lab. So you can go to IGI in Milano and they will immediately separate one from the other. That's not a problem. Well, I'm just to finish my voice. Just to finish up, I'm going just to introduce you a little bit of one of our museums in Lisbon that we use to educate jewelers. We take salespeople there to show them wonderful jewelry with diamonds, with emeralds, with art, and with those amazing wow moments, that excitement, we create the atmosphere. Then to talk about diamonds, how diamond cut is so important, what is a ruby, what is a pink sapphire, what is an emerald, what is a treatment, and those, what is a Ballas ruby and what is a Oriental ruby. Those are very old trade names. And that kind of historical excitement will sell. The salesman will help the salesman do what he needs to be doing to close a sale. Storytelling and following proper procedure in a very elegant way. So you cannot be very strict to close a sale. You must be charming. Well, this is, I'm going to tell you the technical term. This is a corundum, a pink corundum. How do we call a pink corundum in the trade today? Pink sapphire, wonderful. This is a pink sapphire. Well, it is actually a pink sapphire. You submit this to a lab and it will come up with that definition. But this was observed in daylight illuminant. If you want to be technical, in 5,500 Kelvin illuminant. But if you use a tungsten, which is formatting, incandescent equivalent, look at the color. It's red. How do you call a red corundum? A ruby. So this is light for selling, light for buying. Okay, you buy like this, you sell like that. But imagine if you know that this happens. Imagine how you can excite your client just by playing with the light. Because what's behind this is something that if you have your gemology in your mind, you know that it is fluorescence that is triggering that red over the pink. And this will create the storytelling environment so you can then carry on and close the sale. And you can only, this is just an example, you can only do this if you have the education on the product. So product knowledge is also critical to do that. Of course, there are trade standards on how you draw a line. Every major laboratory, they do have those standards in the type of illuminant, and they have sample sets to determine exactly where you draw the line. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rui. I would like to thank all the speakers for their amazing and very interesting talks. And I would like to thank all of you for being here. Grazie.